Yeah, so, well, it kind of starts with, I heard that Sergio was going to be doing an MVDA training with some of the young people he met at the school strike. So I put my hand up to find out where that was and how I could be involved. And coming out the other side of that, Serge had organised us to meet at the front of Constance's office, which is what the kids had wanted. And then in the end, no one but me and Serge ended up being there. So, yeah, we decided to stay true that something was going to be happening that day at the office, and we got up on the roof, which, yeah, we were there for a little while, and then the cops came, told us to get down, which we didn't do. And then the fire brigade came with their ladder, and yeah, considering it was kind of just a little taster for me and just to scope things out, we came down at that point, got arrested, got driven to the police station, and then got unarrested. So that was kind of the first little preliminary to the rest of what kept rolling from there. Yeah. And then we had a MVDA for everybody else shortly after that. So Serge ran an MVDA for our team, which was, yeah, pretty fun and good for confidence building. And then we more or less came out the other side of that with an intent to do something bigger. Someone else want to take it from here?
Well, I think it was, I just would like to comment on how spontaneous the whole thing was. And the thing that made it work as it did was that we all of us knew each other enough to develop ideas, and we knew the community enough to develop ideas, and it really wasn't intended to be a major public event. Really, it was sort of this little bunch of 6 or 8 people who are frustrated, and then we had the impetus of a highly practiced arrestee coming and saying, it's easy, it's easy, it's easy, it's easy, it's easy, it's easy. It's really, really easy, it's easy, it's easy. You don't need to know anything. It's just really easy. And so we sort of went with that. I think, do people think that's true? We went with that. So we just, after 2 or 3 meetings of 6 or 8 people, so from the first idea, what date did you get arrested, Annabelle?
Well, the
scoping exercise. That was the Friday the 27th of May. 20th of May was the school strike. 27th of May, you were scoping the roof. 28th of May, we were in Narooma at an NVDA type, at a meet and greet session with Larissa. Hi, Larissa. And at that, we just went, yeah, we want to do something. So on the 29th of May, we started talking about doing something as a bigger mob. And on the 8th of June, there were people getting arrested. So it was a 9 or 10 day turnover. So it was very spontaneous. I think that's the thing that I really want to add, is that it really was a result of the energy of, fresh energy of frustrated with the inertia, community inertia, political inertia. And we just all felt, I think, yeah, Sue, you'd just come back from Melbourne not long before that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Canberra too. We'd all just come back from Canberra, remember?
Oh, we'd been up to Canberra.
Still pretty fired up in Canberra, yeah.
So you came back from Canberra. That's an interesting point in terms of actions getting you people keen for more action. Something for everyone I think is really interesting. And then maybe just briefly go over what you did, what the action was, what the messaging was, and also for everybody else, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, because we're just going to sort of hear the story, and then I think we'll have a bunch of questions later on, or people can incorporate their answer, what they're saying to the questions as well, if you want to.
So the action was, we decided to put, one of the big issues in our community is around the forests, and as well as the bushfires. You know, we're pretty hammered by the bushfires. We lost 80% of native habitat, and then we and we have a big chip mill down in Eden that eats a lot of our forests. It eats about 2,000 trees a day. So and also our member is Andrew Constance, who is also the New South Wales Minister for Transport, who tried to put through a directive to clear 40 metres on either side of the highway of the trees. So we thought he was a good target. And in our community, there's pretty, people are pretty supportive around the forest issue. There's been a lot of forest activism here for a very long time. So we chose an action where we wanted to put wood chips in front of his office. And then we had Andrew decided to glue on next to the door. And then Serge and Jared decided to be up on the roof. And I don't know what point I decided to be up on the roof, but yeah, so I decided to be up on the roof and somehow got an inspiration to do that in an angel costume. So yeah. I don't know, does someone want to take over from there? And I guess what added to it, oh sorry, did you want to go?
I want you to answer. Yeah, go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so what happened, we had quite a small action, and we even had still pedestrian access in front of the office. But what really helped our action is the police came in and decided it was a crime scene and blocked off the whole street, moved everybody off the street, got heaps of vehicles in there, had paramedics in there, and it just turned into this whole big massive disruption, which we could have never pulled off with what we had done. And then they decided that they couldn't get us down unless they got a ladder, and that they had to wait for search and rescue, which had to come from 4 hours or 3.5 hours away at Goulburn. So that's what really built it for us, and it turned into a much bigger action than we could have ever fantasized that we were going to pull off. So it was awesome.
We just have a question which I think really relates to the tangible story now. Like, how did you get on the roof? Did you know it was going to be strong enough?
Oh yeah, I guess because we had a ladder. Although in the reports it said we scaled the building. I don't know if I could have scaled it in my dress and wings, but yeah, we had a ladder that we then got rid of afterwards. And I don't know, I guess, you know, those guys felt pretty strong. I felt pretty strong up there. I do a lot of building. I spend a bit of time on roofs. It felt pretty safe. And it was actually kind of nice in a way, because you were up high, you were away from that direct, you didn't have to have the police right in your face kind of thing, because you were away. That was kind of cool.
I just wanted to mention quickly too, so originally when Serge and I scouted the roof, it was the fire brigade that showed up with the ladder to get us down, which was pretty instantaneous. And then when it came to that bigger action, the fire service appeared to have defected from being a participant in it. I don't know if that's the whole story, but for whatever reason, they didn't actually show up to help facilitate getting us off the roof, which is quite interesting.
The Ambos had a different thing happening in that they happened to accidentally be driving past, so that's why they were there. There was no intent on, or I don't know that there was any request for them to come, and I don't know whether they'd necessarily be there in future. They just happened to be there then, and so stopped because of the police person.
And then it felt like it just became this exciting place to be. I think that everyone thought, well, this is the best thing happening in town. So they just stayed there. They were buying coffees for each other and hanging out. There was like 7 paramedics, I think, in that van.
I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of other elements in the action as well, was that apart from Andrew, who's hiding his face from us, gluing onto the front of the building with super glue, which we rehearsed thanks to Sergio. So we were not too frightened of that. We were still a little bit, but that went okay. But we also, because of the forestry activity down here, nearly every street corner in the Bega Valley has got a large pile of wood chips on it because they're mulching debris from the fires and taking out unsafe trees. So there's lots of wood chips. So we decided to do, hello Andrew, decided to do what has been done once before, which was to litter the front entrance to Constance's building with wood chips as well. And that's where the theme with the Annabelle, and we drove up to our first meeting with Sue in her little bus, a little Mazda bus, which is like a 7-seater, but we all fit in there. And on the way back, Annabelle just came up with this chipping away our future thing. And we just got really, really passionate about the honesty in that summary. And so we stopped on the street corner near our homes, our collective homes, and grabbed a ute full of chips, and we put that on the street as well. But we also had a significant contingent of supporters from the recent Mogo State Forest blockade. They came down as well. So in terms of people that were aware that there was an action happening and or actively involved in the setup of it, there was probably a dozen of us all up, maybe 14. But that started at 8:30, but by 10:30 there was probably 60 or 70 or more people. I don't know. You were up high. How many people do you reckon?
That were on the edges, because by that point nobody was allowed in. They cleared out, so everyone was just kind of standing on the fringes of the. I don't know. People came and went, and I don't know how many people. I don't know if there was 50. I don't know. But it was definitely affecting a lot of traffic flow. It was great.
Disruptive.
So disruptive. We've got a question, which is how long did it last for all up, and what happened to the wood chips at the end, and what was the local media response? Some questions would be great to answer.
Well, the wood chips ended up going on the Salvo's garden around the corner. They came and helped, and they got put onto the to mulch the front of the Salvation Army garden, which was great. The action went on, so it started about 8:30, and I think, when did they cut you off, Serge? That was the last, maybe about 2.
Jared was last.
Oh, Jared was last. Yeah, right. I think it was about 2:30, maybe 3.
Yeah, it was 2:50 to be exact, I think. Yeah. So around 3 o'clock, I got cut off. Yeah.
And what was the media response like, the local media response?
Well, it's pretty wild. The first article the journalist wrote was quite balanced on the actual day. That was an online article. And then the following day, she did an update, which was pretty much just a copy of the police report. It didn't even say why we were doing it, which was really disappointing. And so then when it went to press on the Friday, that's the article that got printed. It did have a photo of us, and she did get our name, I think, in the heading. But otherwise, it was just a copy of the police report. It just listed our charges. It didn't say why we did it or anything. So that was a bit disappointing. Sorry, go.
I think in the end too, she ended up taking both articles down because they were too contentious, and there was all sorts of wild commentary on the online forum, which is a bit kind of scary, but
Well, I feel like maybe that might have been a weak point in our prep. If we were going to do it again, we might fine tune our PR.
Yeah, I agree, Andrew. we didn't actually very systematically go through the Oz Rebellion action planning template before we launched into all of this. Also, no alcohol was drunk while we were preparing this. It's like we've got no excuse for not doing it more thoroughly. But the initial purpose was, first of all, to just really turn the knife into the state government's forestry policy, and local member was the easiest target for that, but also to leap off the very enthusiastic participation at the School Strike for Climate event and build the XR presence in the community. And so we were really more interested in building the presence. So we made up a brochure that just said, come to a meeting, it's an emergency, come to a meeting on Friday. So that's what we were handing out on Tuesday at the action, was a little brochure saying, come to the meeting on Friday, we want to meet you, we want you to join, you know, to take emergency action on the climate. So our narrative around the rest of it hadn't actually properly developed, and that sort of is something that we developed further after the arrest. And we went, hang on a minute, they're criminalising protesters. And so then we built a much stronger and clearer narrative, you know, for the follow-ups to, you know, what they say in XR, the action's not complete till the last fine's paid or something. Well, this is going to be a while. Yeah.
So we've had a few questions come through. We're going to get to like how the community responded and how the group's going now afterwards, but just regarding the day, we still have one. You know, did you present Andrew Constance office with any demands? And yeah, I guess, how did you put out your message? You sort of said that you didn't work through the planning in some ways, but did you do a press release, and did you have like roles and that covered? And also there was that question, is it true that the police liaison went sightseeing?
Yeah,
Yep.
so we did have a press release. We did have a press release.
Yes, we did.
And
Yep.
I did do a few interviews on the day with the local newspaper and ABC radio as well. But there wasn't much media presence really. Bonnie did a beautiful write-up for us. That was probably the strongest piece of media that came out of the action. And yes, Trevor did go sightseeing. In Trevor's defense, he did get totally pushed out. Part of the police shutting down the road and declaring a crime scene meant that he felt relatively useless. And when the police negotiators did come back, we did bring him back to do his job again. But yeah, he was a bit hard to find. And yes, it is true. He went sightseeing.
Yeah, he'd been sent. He'd been sent on his way by the police.
And also, we didn't actually have anyone available to do what we now think would have been a deeper grounding in police liaison, legal observing. It just all happened really quickly, and we didn't have a lot of those foundational action skills. So we were pretty spontaneous, I think, in that respect. And our police liaison officer did offer to step into that breach, knowing that he didn't have a lot of training, and we allowed that, knowing that we had other things to do or didn't have enough training to beat his offer. So I think it's just to acknowledge that the time involved in getting training and setting these things up is huge. Like I spent 20 hours of my life that week doing that, and I don't begrudge a minute of it, but it's a big commitment. It's exhausting.
There was some accidents that were profitable, and some accidents that were less. You know, we'd need to change for next time.
Maybe we can go now with like the response, like how big the group is, the core group, and how did it go in terms of building the movement locally?
Oh, I just finished typing all that.
I feel like it built the group really, really well. I felt like there's a much clearer pathway forward for everywhere. Well, from myself, I suppose I can only speak for myself, but there's this sense that prior there was this, you know, I don't know, almost like lost or not doing anything, whereas now I feel like there's a clearer pathway forward and there's stronger support in the community.
But yeah, we definitely got a mixed reaction in the wider community. You know, it's a very it's a pretty interesting little town, Bega. It's got, you know, there's quite a few more alternative sort of people have moved into the area, but you got some very old farming families. It's very yeah, it's a bit cut and dried, you know. So there's a lot of people who have come by and thanked us for what we've done and to thank us for keep doing what we're doing. I haven't looked, apparently on the Bega Valley notice board, it was fairly aggressive and derogatory, but I don't read any of that. I stay away from that.
And
I know that's good.
you gonna go, Sal?
I was just going to say, just on the notice board, because every now and again I take the risk of posting something on that notice board, which has got a reputation for having a few troll type responses and fake names and whatnot. But every now and again I just do it again to stir the pot, and increasingly getting people sticking up for us. You know, people will comment on the trolls and knock them down or criticise their sources or, you know, expose them one way or another. So it's I'm interested to see that there is a broader conversation about emergency climate action, even though there's still the people that you just ignore. Yeah, it's a community, so people who know people go like, "What are you thinking saying that?" You know. But that wasn't the case on the street on the day. There was a lot of trolling on the street too. A lot of dissing.
You have to be, or it's good to be strong in preparation for that, so you can, I don't know, practice ignoring it. Refine our ignoring skills.
Say that last bit again, please, Andrew.
We perhaps need to refine our ignoring skills.
That's a great line. I think it's so amazing, all the reflecting and learning that is happening there locally, and I'm very excited for next steps. I was down in that area, and I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that there was at least 20 people who came to the emergency meeting, and then another 20 slightly different who came to the meeting 2 days later on the Sunday as well. So it sparked like more participation from other people and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, we had a whole crew come from Pottery Palace, which is an animal wildlife sanctuary. And I think there was maybe half a dozen, was there? 6 or 8 people came from that organisation and really jumped on board with us and offered their space as a meeting place.
Another area of to refine is making use of timely enthusiasm, even maybe just something simple like collecting communication information so that we can feed out to these people again. I feel like that's another gap in our well, a place to improve, you know.
Andrew, the action wasn't really over for you once you were arrested. Do you want to speak on that?
Well, that's my story about our First Nations people. Is that what you're directing me to? Yeah. So for me personally, the whole action drew attention to discrimination, disadvantage, and particularly of our First Nations people. I told the story outside the court of the flags in the cells, 2 cells that we visited, and remembering that I was a white male with significant advantage, and most of the people who are in those places they're either have an intellectual issue or a psychological issue, or that's the 3 groups of people that end up in jail, or they're First Nations people, and you know, like we have to remember that there's an equal proportion of bad people in our rich population. Why are they not in our jails in the same proportion? You know, the wealthy people who don't pay taxes, and the wealthy people who launder their money in our gambling institutions. The list of ways that the wealthy people pay their lawyers and et cetera. And while these people, our First Nations people, are most likely to die in custody. So it was that truth sitting in those cells that was brought home most strongly to me, and that's where we talk about climate. We need climate justice. There's no point in moving forward without moving forward with everybody. I can see you, Sue. I can't see anybody else or hear anybody.
And what is the ongoing repercussions? I'm not fully up to track. You've had a couple of court appearances. What were you charged with?
I think we're going to be expedient in our. I think that's our kind of. We're without wanting to speak too much for Sue or Jared, but I think we're thinking of moving with one, and we're going for expediency at the moment. But we've got another court case. But I haven't heard anything other than it's the 27th, but I haven't spoken to Lisa recently. So things might be finalised then.
Okay. Miriam, you had a comment which, would you like to read that out actually? Your last reference. Miriam?
Headphones off actually. I'm not listening.
You're muted.
You're muted, Miriam.
Like a debrief that we never had.
That was, I think that's so important. That was in reference to the idea of practicing ignoring or practicing staying with it, because it seems to me that that's one of the things in a small community that really holds people back. So in here in Northern Rivers, in the case of Bentley, because it was virtually the whole community, that wasn't a factor. But nowadays it's kind of returned as a fear factor for a lot of people, that, you know, they know everybody, so they don't want to upset people. But so I think it's important to practice it. You know, either through role plays or however, or just by doing what you're doing. You just went out and did it. I think you just did it. Even though it mightn't have been perfect according to what people hoped, I think you achieved a whole lot, and you've learned so much, because what you're telling us is it's really valuable for us up here where we are. Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing I think that was probably a bit more intense that we weren't expecting was the kind of charges that they threw at us. We ended up with, up on the roof, we ended up with a trespassing, charge, a failing to comply with directions charge, a putting other people at risk by being on the roof charge. But probably the most concerning was they tried to use a violence and intimidation charge on us. That was the original charge. And I think that really threw us, because that's quite a serious, you know, that's a convictable charge. And so that's been quite a big thing for us to carry. And it was kind of a bit, it sort of added to what did add to the theatre of what happened, because people were trying to reconcile. They had seen us up on the roof. They saw me as an angel, and they're like, well, where's this violence and intimidation? And the police just had decided to charge us as a joint activity, and that they decided, you know, that this, yeah, that the wood chips and the whole thing all put together was this violence and intimidation. So that was pretty heavy to come away with that. We weren't expecting that. That charge has since been amended to a annoyance and hindering charge. It's still under the Violence and Intimidation Act, though. Yeah, that was a bit unexpected, and it sort of, I mean, it added to, I mean, it probably added to the what's the word? Notoriety. How do you say that? I can't think of. Yeah, the notoriety of it, because even I spoke to another lawyer friend of mine, and she said, well, when she saw that charge, she thought that there must have been some kind of heavy verbal interaction or some kind of confrontation. She was really, yeah, so that was unexpected. And I think that's maybe something that happened because we were in a country regional area. I think they just didn't really know what to do with us.
I think we pretty clearly overstretched their resources as well. Like they had, you know, the fact that they had the search and rescue coming from Goulburn, they had ambulances holding the road. It's easy to imagine that they were extremely stressed and not sure if they were going to be able to maintain that control. And had it have been just a little bit more organized or a few more people, maybe they couldn't have. Like it's a bit hard to say how close we were to pushing them past their capacity.
Or what their response to that might have been if they were pushed past their capacity.
We got a question. So it sounds like police were aggressive and totally unsympathetic. Would you say, how do people respond to that?
Oh, probably they were just a bit more stressed. Yeah. Panicking.
I think they were stressed, but I thought they were most of them were fairly respectful in their dealings, you know.
Within the context of overreach, Sue, you know, like to shut the whole place down and call it a crime scene and chuck everybody out of the area. But then once they'd achieved that, and we were all a bit taken aback too, I think, except for Annabelle had a bit more of a handle on what she could push back with, which was great to hear those stories from Annabelle. But with not, you know, wanting to stay in a green role, like there was quite a few people there who were pretty clear they wanted to stay in a green role, but even Alistair wasn't able to stay in a green role. He got carted off. No. Okay. Oh, so I just got contradicted there. That's good. But just not being really sure of our ground was a disadvantage. That the police, they pushed back pretty fast, pretty hard, and the council got brought in, and so the rest of us were like, well, how do we keep the space? And I think because you guys were actually out of reach, and Annabelle was sure of her ground, that so that 5 or 6 people managed to hold the space for those 8 hours pretty well. And the police didn't have a hard job. They just kept flicking people back, stay back, stay back. So they weren't aggressive to anyone else, but they made aggressive charges.
Yeah, they were aggressive in their charges. I mean, yeah.
And did you have like a good de-escalation? Was de-escalation sort of necessary with the police or with people down on the road?
Well, initially everybody just got pushed out, so there wasn't even really an opportunity for de-escalation. But then a couple of hours in, the police negotiators did come in and they did try and create strategies for getting them down off the roof. But yeah, by that stage, it was kind of just like, well, I mean, what have you tried? Did you even put a ladder up yet? So it was kind of a bit of a joke by that point. And the police had calmed down by that point too.
Yes. How did they respond to your singing, Sue?
They didn't say much. The police didn't directly say anything to me. They just, but yeah, that was kind of tricky. You know, when I realized we were going to be there for hours, I was thinking, well, we can't just stand here in silence. So I just, every so often, just burst into a couple of songs there. I mean, I really enjoyed the one I hear you sing a lot, Violet, the People Gonna Rise Like the Water. That felt really empowering to really sing that one loud. And the other one, you know, we're peaceful and united and we're here for your children too. But yeah, I don't know. I always feel good because I feel like I've learned now if I sing lower, that's something I learned to, if I try and sing in a lower pitch, it can last longer and it kind of travels further and I don't burn my throat out, because that was a bit challenging because I felt, you know, I was singing on my own. I felt like, oh, you know, and I know that people were joining in from the edges sometimes, but yeah, otherwise I just felt like I just had to keep holding that space. But it really felt good to do too, because it just felt like it just kept bringing the message back every time we did that. And I always think, you know, I go away from actions and those songs are going in my head. So I always think, well, I bet those police go home and those songs and the chants are going in their head too.
Yeah, I always think singing is powerful and under, you know, like it's something to do more.
And did you have any legal help, I guess, is the question that's been posted.
You mean before or after?
Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah, we've had a lot. Oh, sorry, go.
You go, Sue.
Well, Lisa came in at Bateman's Bay and she's been with us ever since.
So Lisa was the link, because we had the forest defenders from Mogo with us. That was Sean really quickly put Lisa into the picture, I think, and had that support there as soon as he realised how serious the charges were and the need for support. So that was a retrospective. Yeah, we didn't get that beforehand. Didn't plan that out beforehand. Yeah, but on the legal side, one of the things that was interesting about the action was that because there were a lot of observers from community there, I was streaming, so I was sort of like just trying to be with the camera, so not really engaging very much with the overall action. But the number of people that were making abusive remarks from the crowd was really concerning. And at one stage, I did see a police officer reprimand a member of the public and tell them to stop antagonising. I think he said, "Don't antagonise," was the word he used, and waved him off down the road a little bit. And that just amplified for me the hypocrisy of the criminalising of protesters and the legalising of crimes. And so that, for me, we talked about that more and more, and that became the theme for our court support action the couple of weeks later, you know, to really amplify the gap between accountability of companies and government departments and the efforts of individuals. So I feel like that to me is something to really keep leaning on and keep growing as well, because there's been some, yeah, anyway, it's a big conversation that.
Yeah, if people have more questions, put in the chat. I was wondering, like, what's the next steps for the regional rebellion there, or for the people?
Well, this one's not finished yet. We're still doing arrestee support. And regrouping, I suppose, with the new members that came as a result of that action. And there have been a number of people that have expressed really solid interest in being more involved in disrupting business as usual. Local, good, strong local people who want to be involved, but yeah, pulling people together is hard in spread out spaces. You know, it's 80 kilometres from the top of the shire to the bottom, and you know, it's winter, but we keep working at it. Annabelle's got lots of signal groups going, and yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it feels like there's no shortage of enthusiasm or, you know, action ideas, but we're kind of lacking in the more foundational things. So we're just ploughing through a bit of theory and general practice and getting towards cohesive plans.
Which we have ideas for, but we need more foundational training. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's session on coal and gas. I think that'll be interesting.
And what kind of training do you think would be useful? More NVDA training?
Definitely, we need that, and we need police liaison training, and we need some legal observers type stuff to really better support our members who are stepping outside the obedience frame into disobedience. So we need more of that.
Good to go into that disobedience with a better understanding of what's likely to happen.
But we were so fortunate. I just want to send a big shout out to Sergio and all the energy that he put into inspiring us and motivating us and lifting the bar to really make it to the level of action that we had. I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think that he's the main driver that got us through the fear and the anxiety and got the ball rolling.
And that sounds to me like that ball is continuing to roll. Like, would you say the people who are in that action have now crossed a threshold of some kind to continue to do more and to overcome a lot of things?
I crossed that threshold in Canberra, I think, going up for the budget week. I was really fired up about the budget. Like, I was just angry, and so I organised my life as much as I could at short notice to get up there for a few days, and, you know, to see a lot of very experienced people create a powerful objection to the way we're being governed, and that's where I got fired up from. But yeah, that was it was great to translate that into a local event for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the refined illegality of this government is and you know, its attempts to shut down any opposition. You know, it's like a call to action for the grandkids and everybody of their generation. There's nothing else to do but to move forward with action. It's just a matter of you know, planning and timing and working out what the best thing is best to do next is. But it's got to be disruptive, I'd say.
Well, speaking of calls to action, we have Parliament sitting again in the first week of August. And so a crew of us called the Dance Affinity, Disruption and Non-Compliance Escalation are heading to Canberra for the first week of August. I know a lot of the bigger crew came to their actions planning meeting, and super keen to engage people in that. So if people are willing and wanting to come first week of August to Canberra, that would be fantastic. And that is a part of a two-part escalation strategy for October as well, when Parliament is sitting again during COP.
Well,
And
the last sitting times in Australia before COP, we're
Yeah.
planning on a massive disruption in Canberra to really, with the aim is actually that we're going to have 60 to 100 people not comply after disrupting and force the judge either to let them out, because what we need to do is disrupt this in this climate emergency, or else we will go to jail. And that's a major campaign that some of us are working on. So if you want to be involved, there will be more like events and stuff, but also if you want to send us your number, you can get in touch.
Yes.
yes, it's 8:30.
So yeah, we have the Zoom still booked for a bit, but I think we have covered a lot of questions and stuff. Is there any other burning questions that people have? Or want to make any comments, even people from around the country who are here? How are you feeling now after hearing this? Has it, you know, changed your ideas about doing stuff locally? That would be probably really interesting. Yeah, go Tony.
It's very inspiring. Thank you for doing that, Bega. It was really, really fantastic. And, you know, I think in country areas, it is a challenge because you do feel the hatred a little more when it's there. You feel the love more too. But you know, when we do our Fridays for Future most weeks, we get you know, last week I think it was 170 toots. We do get a bit obsessive and count them sometimes, and we got 7 insults. But the insults are visceral. You know, they're just. Some of them are hilarious, like get a job, and most of us are well retired. But yeah, it's so it is different, and it does make you feel a bit anxious. We've done quite a few different things like die-ins and non-obstructive intersection things, you know, that just go with the traffic lights, etc. But we haven't done anything really like you guys in Bega have done. In our local community. In Melbourne, our members have got arrested, but not locally. So it's great, great inspiration, and thank you.
I wondered if you're operating in a mostly Labor and Liberal seat. If you got federal Labor and
It's a bellwether.
Bellwether, Mead and Monaro, you're the one, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, we have similarities in that we've got our areas being absolutely trashed after the fires by a logging industry. They're in there trying to destroy absolutely everything. Before in Victoria, we've got a phase out by 2030, and it looks as though their plan is to log every single tree before then. So it's pretty horrible. They're sort of battling on different fronts. There's different groups of people involved in that, but we do work together, and so similar in that way.
I think
we do a Fridays for Future, and having this like constant thing that's there every week, I feel like it's got its value.
Yeah, agree.
And we did placards for about 3 or 4 months as well.
Do you post on your Facebook page the Fridays for Future? Because I do the Gippsland XR page, and I always post the.
What we might do actually, sorry to cut you off there, Tony, but I'd love to encourage like some cross connection here. So, you know, reach out directly. If you could direct message and swap some details, it would be really good. Especially, I love the idea of the southeast corner coming together potentially for, you know, Eden, right between, well, close to both of you.
Okay, yeah, hi. Yeah, so just wanted to mention the trajectory. So there was a, you know, 2, you know, rebels that wanted to do something and were frustrated with the failure of their lives. I got on top of a roof on one day and then went to an XR strategy meeting the next day. And, you know, the group of, you know, 8 people decided, we're actually going to go into rebellion and do something serious. Starting with a pretty fun action outside our local MP's office. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. We all know what happened there. And it was, you know, severely, like, overly repressed from the police. You know, people, it was also the rebels that participated were, like, you know, showed an interesting level of, like, defiance and courage. So, for example, Alistair was arrested for refusing to give the police his details, his name and that. And the people that were arrested, well, myself, Andrew, and Jared, you know, we refused to sign police bail, and we ended up, you know, being in custody overnight until court. So, you know, there was this really intense level of courage and defiance in this area that's been so ravaged by the bushfires and by, you know, climate change. And adding on top of that, I ended up also through my own sort of stubborn defiance in prison for a week on hunger strike because of it, not directly because of the action or the charges, but just because I couldn't be in front of a magistrate without signing bail, which I refused to sign. And then, you know, on the Friday, the emergency meeting that happened, the police rescue from Goulburn drove 4 hours, this truck full of, you know, the machinery that they cut you off with, and the ladders and the climb gear and everything like that they would ever need, you know, to deal with you. Which is the reason why the action lasted so long, is for the transportation of that vehicle. That vehicle was re-summoned back to Bega on Friday, 3 days later, and, you know, all the police they could muster, which is probably like, I didn't get the actual number, but, like, you know, I'm sure like 8 or something because it's bigger. Police were, you know, at the emergency meeting in, like, which is in a park, you know what I mean? Sort of being all like, oh, what are they going to do? And, you know, the police rescue being like, why are we here? They're having a picnic, you know what I mean? Like, you know, what they, so what I'm saying is, like, you know, the community was shaken immensely, right, by the passion of a dozen people and the demonstration of that passion, right? And then, right, so I don't know how many people turn up to that emergency meeting. Does someone have the number?
It was about 20.
Yeah. So 20 people rock up to a meeting, you know, 3 days after the action, right? So that means Bega grew by over Bega, the XR group in Bega was like at least 150 times, percent larger, right, in 2 weeks. From
that Friday meeting normally gets about 2 or 3, maybe 4 people show up normally.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's right. So what we can see here is the growth is massive, right, when we actually engage in this type of action. And then what happened was, you know, a week from that action, with a bunch of, you know, people reaching out to their community, you know, media tacking on, and people coming into that emergency meeting and telling their friends about it. We had, you know, at least 40 anyway, but we had a massive turnout for, you know, outside a courthouse to support the rebels that were going through court. Does someone have the numbers of people that turned out for that, which was a week later?
Yeah, but that was about 40 people.
Yeah, 40 people, right? And what was it? Was it 2 weeks before that? 3 weeks before that, I think, is a school strike, which had what, like less than 100, right? Or about 100?
Yeah, about 100. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a number.
I'm just giving some like rough numbers here so people can do some data mining.
Yeah, it's about 100.
Math and that. So that's pretty unheard of in a community, like for a community to have like near half the people, like near, you know, half the number of people that would turn out to a school strike, turn out to support what, like 4 people going through court as at a protest, right? So what I'm showing you here is a trajectory that is like, you know, significant for everyone in XR and in doing this type of work. So yeah, the group was grown immensely in a week, in 2 weeks, and then from that, you know, there's working groups now working on different parts of things like arts, media, recruitment, future actions, and the group is now sort of, you know, somewhat self-sufficient and moving forward. But what we can see here is that we don't have to begin our groups or even, you know, just remain within a regime of sort of placating our communities with you know, stuff that they're used to. People want to see this kind of action, right? Civil disobedience and direct action on climate change, and they will stand behind you if they see that you're serious. Whereas, you know, I'm sure if we in BEGA did a whole bunch of holding signs, I doubt we would have this many people in the group. I doubt we would ever have 40 people turning out. Anyway, would anyone else like to mention some of the trajectory and the sort of growth of BEGA? Just some.
I agree.
I'd like to talk to that.
I feel like what's happened is you've taken people who are committed to the cause, but you've moved them into a more active, or you've given them a pathway forward. Sal?
Oh, I was just going to say that in that year of 2018, 2019 it was, we had 3 student strikes, and they went from, you know, 100 people at the first one, 300 at the second one, and up to 600 at the next one, and then the one after that was just really collapsed, because we had the fires and the community was really ruined. And when we were doing the placards, you know, we started off with 4 or 5 people. There were some days where we had 15 or 20 people walking around that intersection, but the fires totally took the wind out of our sails, and we weren't operating as XR then, but it was after that we had an intention to focus more on the emergency, and so to form under the banner of XR. And we've been trying to pull that together all year. But it's definitely having the budget thing for me was a really important thing, and having Sergio and other people with his experience come into our community and stay, you know, really to give time and energy to it. And then, you know, even for the court support, we had Andy and Violet visit and Mark for a few days and stay and really get to know us and support us in small practical ways has made a big difference too. So I just wanted to acknowledge that that supports our confidence, and, as you know, the conviction's there, but our confidence is often a bit shaky.